Welcome one and all to the auditory counterattack. Welcome to the RazörForce offensive. You know, week after week, day after day, hour after hour, one question constantly assails me. What on earth are we going to talk about? There's just nothing to talk about in this contemporary news cycle. Folks, I am your intrepid host, RazörForce. I am joined by the 12-gauge godfather, Tactical Hobo. Hello, sir.
Greetings.
And we are joined by the 2.5-inch Admiral, Terengel. How are you?
Go to hell, Tom.
We only tease because we love. Folks, it is the RazörForce offensive. We've been doing these now weekly. Let us know what you're thinking of all of it. It's actually been really well received. I've been pretty humbled by how the return of the RazörForce offensive has been. We are, of course, on Unauthorized TV today. We're actually streaming on Unauthorized today. And normally, of course, the way that this works is we stream live everywhere, and then the VOD and everything goes up live on Unauthorized immediately after that. It's private everywhere else, but it goes live on Unauthorized TV. So if you're a member of the RazörForce right now, you want to interact because, folks, this is the offensive. And guys, what on earth are we going to talk about? I mean, nothing, absolutely nothing has happened. Certainly nothing quasi-treasonous.
Boring news week after boring news week.
I know, just boredom. What were you saying, Hobo?
I said, they don't like the things they say on Twitter.
Who's they? The Jews. That's how it works on the internet, right? James Comey, folks. Taryn, do you have the James Comey actually?
Yep, it's already up. If you see it,
unfortunately. James Comey appears to call for the assassination of President Trump. I mean, do we even really need to read this? Everybody knows this. It's the thumbnail of the episode. When you saw this today, and I'm sure both of you saw this several hours ago.
Oh yeah.
What was rolling through your coconut?
He did it again.
Oops, I did it again.
Yeah,
Well, you know, it's funny. So I don't know how this is even a sentence, but it's true. I have connections to some people in the administration, more than one actually. And a few of them know a person who knows a person, you know, whatever, who may have worked under Comey at one point. And the overall, I've even seen this on social media, so this pretty much accords with what other people who have dealt with him are saying. He has a superhero complex. And like as egocentric and as self-important and as fully engorged in his own asshole as any of us happen to think he is, it's 10 times worse. It's 10 times worse in real life. He is convinced that justice will never come to him. He is convinced that he is above the law. He is convinced that he has been given a divine decree by the Almighty to basically expunge the Trump phenomenon and anyone who supports him from office. Understand this, guys. So in brief summary, 8647, clearly the idea is, it's old mob slang, which is pertinent. Comey, FBI, they worked heavily, right, back and forth with the mob. And if you want to see how well they did at purging the mob, just look at YouTube, where being a former mob enforcer and a guy who's assassinated dozens of people is now a YouTube genre. So none of them are still in prison because they all turned rat. And as long as the FBI gets the pelt to pin to their wall, they don't give a crap about justice. This is the FBI that James Comey comes from, folks. So 8647, clearly a call to assassinate, like quite clearly. It's funny, like when I first heard it, I was like, oh, people are probably exaggerating. And then I thought about it for a minute. Wait a minute, this is mob slang. This is gangland slang. This is not accidental. This is an FBI guy. Like, what the FBI was basically created to deal with the early mob, and they've been tied up in dealing with the mob since the very beginning. It's not accidental verbiage. Nothing James Comey does is accidental, but he does oddly seem to stumble across a lot of seashells that perfectly reflect his political views. Have you guys picked up on this at all?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because we know what he would like to happen, but it's vague enough that you can't really prosecute him for it, because 86 also just means get rid of something, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
that. Like in the military, they say we're going to 86 this old this old Humvee because it's a piece, right? So we're gonna go throw it in the scrapyard, that type of thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Hey, relax. All I say is everyone relax. If the FBI really wanted Trump dead, there would be signs like I don't know, multiple moon-faced retards attempting to assassinate him in a 1-month period, all of whom have connections with the FBI. Or say if Joe Biden only dropped out of the presidential race 15 seconds after those multiple murder plots failed or something. But I mean, that would be ridiculous, right? Right, guys?
Let's not forget that the alleged assassin had 10 smartphones.
Yeah. Taryn, can you find the clip of Trump talking about, he was asked directly by, I think it was Brett Baer of Fox News. He was asked directly, like, why don't we know more about Thomas Crooks? And his answer was fascinating. It was very earnest. Like, I thought he came right up to the precipice of saying he doesn't have a lot of confidence in the people around him to tell them the truth. Like, he came really, really close to that. And I would say Trump pull on that thread, because I think a lot of people are blowing a lot of smoke up your ass. It's tough. You know, the second time around, I think he's cagier. I think he's a little bit older and wiser, but still he has to operate within the swamp. He has to operate within Washington. Washington is what it is. But so, yeah, long and short of it, he spelled out 8647 with seashells on the beach. It's funny, he found a Kamala 2024 shell on the beach before that. I don't know. It's like the shittiest MASH finale ever. Like, who spells out a murder threat with seashells? Are you threatening his life or asking him to go steady? Like, have some style about it, I say. You know what I mean? Like, hire a skywriting company like the Wicked Witch of the West did. You know what I mean? Come on. But I just, maybe the chin strap on my thinking cap is a little tight, but I don't know. You really think the guy who opened and closed an investigation into Hillary Clinton in under 48 hours could be corrupt? Because I'm not sure about this one, fellas.
I wasn't able to find that clip, but I did find Trump addressing Comey's 8647 message.
You found Trump replying to it. Did this just pop up?
Yep. Let me cue this up here.
Okay. Let's see.
Turn off that. And we expand this. All right. Am I up?
Perfect Trump face. This is the exact same interview, by the way, where he addresses the fact that we still know virtually nothing about Thomas Crooks. So if you can find this clip, I saw it on Twitter earlier. Maybe look up Thomas Crooks Trump and you might find it in the media section. But yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and watch this.
Child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country has become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he doesn't.
Well, he
wasn't
apologized
for
because he was
violence. But
look, he's a very
what
bad,
do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this: I think it's a terrible thing. And when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop.
Dirty cop!
If he had a clean history,
hashtag dirty cop.
I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision.
Tulsi Gabbard was asked, do you believe that Comey should be in jail? She said, I do. Any other person with a position of influence that has people who take him very seriously with a guy of that stature, his experience, and with propaganda media has built him up to be. She's very concerned. So,
wow. So Trump addresses it directly. I would like, if you can possibly find that clip of him addressing why Thomas Crooks, he's talking about, the reason I thought of it is you guys were talking about him having all the different phones and all that stuff. And Trump is pointing out, like, I thought I had a lot of phones. I've only got 2. I thought that but he's got like 20. What is that about? Right. So it immediately brought it to mind, but it's fascinating because it's kind of a glimpse into, I think Trump is still cognizant of something that a lot of us on the outside have recognized for a few weeks now, which is he's doing better than the first time in terms of keeping his house clean, but there's still some rats in the woodpile. Like, they're still there. You guys get that sense?
It's really hard to get rid of all of them, for sure. I will say one interesting thing I saw. I was looking up the term 86 earlier on Wikipedia, right?
Yeah.
And they're already changing it. And
yeah.
In fact, somebody actually went in the article and said that people are going into Wikipedia to like get rid of it, meaning assassinate. Like in real time, it's being edited. And that's scary because now with everything online, like you can literally just go rewrite history as it happens. It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
You couple that with, I mean, gosh, you think like in maybe, never mind, somebody said in 20 years, all a Twitter argument is going to be, if Twitter's even around then, is, people asking Grok, is that true? So you couple that propensity for censoriousness that we just innately have on these social media apps and on these websites like Wikipedia, you couple that with people's over-reliance on AI and whatever, dude, it's a perfect shitstorm. It's going to be a mess. We barely argue sincerely now. And honestly, even before the advent of AI, how many internet arguments devolved into, like, here's the classic. One guy replies to one guy, actually, that's not true because XYZ, a bunch of things that they pretend to know off the top of their head. And the other guy reads that and goes, ooh, I'm really mad and I want him to be wrong. So Google, right? And then they hit back with a bunch of factoids that they don't actually have any intimate knowledge of or contextual knowledge of. But hey, I Googled it real quick. So, and everybody acts smug like they all knew this all along. This is what every internet argument was like before AI, right? How much worse is it going to be after this with online dictionaries or online encyclopedias, rather, like Wikipedia and other platforms being constantly edited for political or socio-political gain or what have you? Like, I just see this turning ugly. Taryn, you're the cyberpunk guy. Where do you see that going in several years?
Our reliance on AI is probably just going to get worse because, I mean, I hate to say it, but people are lazy.
Yeah, I think it's a convenience thing. Yeah.
Hey, Grok, what should I do today? Or, hey, Siri, give me something to watch, or like what news is reliable or some shit like that.
And make no mistake, Grok lies his ass off. Grok lies all the time. It's hilarious. There's a greatest hits I saw once on Twitter just a few weeks ago of just somebody asking Grok a direct question and him saying absolute fiction. Of course, I asked Grok to generate a photograph of, what was it? A painting of Jesus of Nazareth feeding the 5,000. And he gave me 2 cartoon pictures of neon pink and blue cats. I was...
What?
Yes! I screenshotted it and posted it on my Twitter. You can look at it. Grok goes haywire a lot of times. You know, it's still a developing science, guys. Like, it's not perfect. So this idea of, like, Grok should not only not be a mediator in a debate online, Grok shouldn't even be a participant. It shouldn't. But we heard Tulsi mentioned there. And I think Tulsi was definitely in the news this week. Man, this has been a real dicking for the deep state this week. This honestly is kind of the theme of today's show and this week in general. Tulsi Gabbard has begun a purge of the CIA, a long overdue purge, in my opinion. Did you have that up? Oh, yes, you do. Tulsi Gabbard fires 2 prominent officials. When you hear the names of these officials, you're going to let out the loudest hell yeah since Stone Cold Steve Austin was still in the ring. At National Intelligence Council as part of mission to end weaponization of government. Scroll down, show us who those are. Yeah. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard fired 2 officials of the National Intelligence Council. Officials confirmed at Breitbart as part of the Trump administration's goal to end weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community, according to a spokesperson. Gabbard fired, deep bracing breath, Michael Collins, the acting chair of the council, and Maria Langen-Reichhoff, who served as Collins' deputy. The director is working alongside President Trump to end the weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community, a spokesperson for Gabbard's office said in a statement to the Washington Post. The CIA purge has begun. Not nearly enough, but these are 2 very, very prominent names that should have been gone a long time ago. I'm frankly baffled that it took this long. What's your immediate read on this? I'll throw it to Hobo first.
Michael Collins. Yeah, where have I heard that? That's definitely familiar. He was some corrupt guy from a while back, right? Like that's all I really remember.
Yep.
But man, we know these agencies, yeah, like they're full of people who literally the deep state. They've been in, some of them have been in 20 years, and they're very anti the current administration, as we know. So
entrenched, you have a lot of these entrenched bureaucrats. These are not even the most entrenched. That's the thing. Like, this is kind of a layup, but either way, hey, on behalf of Tulsi's homeland, aloha means goodbye, bitches. Goodbye. There's some added context to this, by the way. This didn't happen in a vacuum. It came on the heels. This is what's so irritating about this. Yes, it's great that we're getting this purge, but still it's kind of reactionary in a way. It comes on the heels of the retards in question authoring this imbecilic memo, which alleged, I mean, imagine even saying this unironically. It alleged that the Maduro administration, in Venezuela, had nothing whatsoever to do with all those Venezuelan gang members being spontaneously sprung from prison and shipped off to Colorado. That was seriously what this memo alleged, and that's what came from Michael Collins. Like, who sprung them, asshat? Robin Hood or the Hamburglar? And why do they all end up in the same damn destination? What, did they just happen to use the same damn dowsing rod, retard? Like, don't shit in my shoes and tell me it's a mudslide, Precious. That's why they got fired. If they had kept their heads down, who knows if they ever would have been purged. And this is my continuing irritation with the Trump administration. I understand things move slow in Washington, but man, you have to consider the possibility that the midterms might go badly. So you need to move in the 2 years that you have comparatively unobstructed. It felt like the 2016 kind of administration kind of shaped up this way. I don't know. Tell me if I'm off base here, but it seemed like it was similar in this way, in that as obstructed as Trump was for the duration of the 4 years that he was in from, 2016 to 2020, the most intense obstruction from his own side, from Republicans, came in the first 2 years. And that was when he had the opportunity to actually get the most done. I feel like we're seeing kind of a reenactment of that. It's a little bit more impotent this time because you don't have Romney, you don't have McCain, and so on. But it's still there. I don't know, guys. Do you agree with that read? What do you think is going on with the obstruction to Trump's agenda and the obstruction in what should be an ongoing purge of all the alphabet agencies?
Well, I mean, first off, purge them all.
Yes.
But secondly,
wipe them out. All of them. There we go.
But
I will make it legal. Anyway.
Didn't this just happen recently? There was a recent vote with it was either Congress or something, and like 10 Republicans or something voted against
in the last 12 hours.
Yeah, what was that?
Yes, absolutely. It was the big beautiful bill that Trump had posited. And of course, the Republicans just shit all over it. They shit all over it.
It's the same thing that happened in his first term. It's just it's neocons and rhinos. They're bitter that they don't have absolute control. They're bitter that they're not getting their cash cow wars.
Yes,
Trump's actually bringing in peace, and they're just gonna stab him in the back.
It's a useful sobriquet to call them rhinos and what have you. But the truth is they're real Republicans, right? Trump is the guy who's trying to change the party into the smaller government Republican stuff. Republicans are progressives, guys. This is why I made my Abraham Lincoln video, right? This is why I made those videos. Because Abraham, when Democrats are pointing out, hey, Abraham Lincoln was a leftist, I mean, they're right. He was. Republicans are a progressive party. It just so happens that the Democrats went eventually further left than he did. And so they just kind of crisscross. We have two progressive parties in this country. Trump is a danger because he's attempting to give us a political alternative. However fumblingly, he is attempting to make the Republican Party the kind of early 20th century. This is why he name checks people like McKinley. This is why he name checks people like Warren Harding and Calvin Coolidge. It's because that was a brief period where the Republicans, there was a sect of the Republicans who kind of dropped the size of government just a little bit and got us to a level where, okay, now we have Democrats who are progressives and we have Republicans who are still have some progressive inclinations, but they're more of a states' rights party. That's kind of when that's the closest we ever came to a partisan flip. The partisan flip is a myth, but we did come very, very close to that. I just feel like these purges in general should have happened right at the outset. I understand he had to do that flurry of executive orders, which is a problem in and of itself. Executive orders are nice for like kind of setting a pace, but you need to make these law. And we can see how well that's going as he's actually trying to get the laws through because the party's going kicking and screaming. They're not. And I wish more Republicans would look over at what's happening to the Democrats and say, hey, there but for the grace of God, go I, because Democrats are in serious trouble. I mean, I saw just the other day in a head-to-head primary matchup with all the likely candidates in the 2028 primaries, AOC is like head and shoulders above everybody. The only person who comes close is Bernie. Not one electable candidate really in the entire field is anywhere close to AOC. Honestly, that would be a gift wrap by the Democrats for Trump, or for whoever runs after Trump, right? But they're in serious trouble. So the Republicans need to take a really hard look and see what's happening to the Democrats as they move more and more in the progressive direction, because they're but for the grace of God. But that wasn't the funniest part of this story, by the way, fellas. Do you have the second part of this story, Taryn? If you don't, I'll bring it up myself.
Let's see here.
Let me see if I do.
Is this about ex-CIA chief John Brennan?
Yes, I'll bring this up. I'll bring this up. Let me see here. This is really where the rubber meets the chode on this story. Ex-CIA chief John Brennan goes ballistic over Gabbard's CIA house cleaning, and the clip itself is fantastic. They'll play a couple of ads.
I'm Sleazy P. Martini. You may know me as manager of WA.
Let this soft mineral melt in your mouth to reverse prostate growth.
I shouldn't have skipped
need
that.
a urologist again.
This whole thing just makes me live.
I was on an election.
Wait, I was watching that.
I know. I was on an election night live stream with Sleazy Martini. Hey, Tactical Hobo, who's Sleazy Martini from?
Dude, I do not remember.
You do. Heavy metal. Think heavy metal.
Oh.
Guar.
Okay. Oh, really?
Guar, my man. Yeah, I got to be on a live stream with him and Styx Hexenhammer. Unfortunately, that was 2020, and it was hilarious. That live stream ended, and we were all crunching the numbers. Yeah, there's really no, looking at the extant votes, there's really no logical way this should be able to turn around. We went to bed pretty well assured Trump was going to be the next president. Like, I remember that vividly. And we're kind of crunching the numbers. But anyways, that's a funny live stream to go back and watch. I appear not to be able to full screen this, but you guys can hear it regardless. This is Brennan's live reaction.
This whole thing just makes me livid. It's appalling and outrageous and demonstrates why Tulsi Gabbard never should have been confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. Michael Collins and Marie Langen-Rykoff are two of the most experienced, accomplished, and talented analyst in the entire U.S. intelligence community.
Ah!
With over 60 years of combined experience, they have worked for successive administrations since the 1990s. They have demonstrated time and time again their capabilities, their competence, their integrity, and they have served as role models for a generation of intelligence officers inside of CIA. They're CIA officers by background and by training. And this is going to have real reverberations within the workforce because, as Congressman Hines pointed out, it's clearly a signal to tell analysts throughout the intelligence community, you tell the truth, you provide objective analysis as you're supposed to be doing, you are running the risk of getting fired. And Michael and Maria are really the quintessential analysts that you want to.
We need to pause for a moment and process what he's really saying here. When you provide true analysis, let's rewind the tape a little bit here. What was the true analysis? Maduro, the assertion that Maduro, a quasi-communist dictator, had no executive control over his prison system. That's their allegation. That the Venezuelan gangs that took over the Colorado apartment buildings and such, you guys, everybody remembers that story. What even happened with that? Did they end up like cleaning that out? But anyways, like it's kind of beside the point. They allege in this report that a communist dictator does not have control of his prison system to the extent that he was the one to release those people, and all of them just coincidentally happened to end up in the same region of the country at the same exact time in a blue state known for not enforcing its laws.
Yes.
This is what he's outraged by. This is the truthful reporting that he's furious at. Let's continue.
To have providing insight and information and analysis to policymakers so they make the right decisions for U.S. policymakers. But this is a very tangible example of such dangerous and insidious corruption within the Trump administration.
There again, there it is, folks. There it is. All right, I want your unvarnished reactions.
Brennan's wanted to talk about corruption in another administration, right? Yeah.
I want those hold on.
These people are serious. Like they actually believe what they're saying. That's the scary part in some cases.
Yeah, this is, people think this Comey thing came from a vacuum. It did not. It's numerous people around him have said all the same thing. When he interceded in the 2016 election so that he could clear Hillary of all wrongdoing, and make no mistake, that was quasi-engineered by the Democratic Party. They thought that was actually going to help her. But of course, Democrats are in constant allies. So when his attempt to clear her after less than 48 hours backfired and made Hillary look worse and caused her numbers to plummet and was part of the reason that she didn't wind up getting elected, what did they do? They threw Comey under the bus. You'll hear from Democrats to this day, oh, Comey cost us the election. Comey tried to hand you the election on a silver platter, and that was your plan in all likelihood, not his. You know what I mean? Like this guy is basically an agent provocateur for the Democratic Party and has been. But so, Taryn, give us your unvarnished reaction to Brennan's words there.
No, I mean, he's full of it. Everyone can tell. I would not be surprised, I mean, if it hasn't been said already, that he aided in having these people brought to this specific place. Because how did all the Somalis end up in the same place?
Yep. Nocturnal Night here makes a good point. So either Maduro ordered it himself or his subordinates did it rogue. Either way, it happened. Neither is good. Both imply we have enemies in Venezuela.
And it happened under the Biden administration. So let's just say it's all Biden's fault then if it's not Venezuela's fault. So either way,
someone is at fault.
It's our fault either way because we're inconstant in our enforcement of immigration law. And by inconstant, I mean constant. We are constantly not enforcing our immigration law. Like that's really... Relax, JB. There's no crying in a coup. That's all I have to say to John Brennan. And how did I ever... Am I the only one who didn't notice until now, like how wall-eyed Brennan is? What the hell? Seriously, I'd never caught that before. I mean, he always looked like a deep state ghoul, but yeah. No wonder he's CIA director. He can keep an eye on both parties at the same time. you know what I took from this when I saw it the first time is, and Comey, this goes for Comey too. Between Brennan and Comey, I got the sense these cats are leaning awfully hard on that Biden pardon, that preemptive pardon that they got, that is likely to stand up about as well as, I mean, the man who issued it, you know, Biden himself, right? Like that's.
Oh, don't you mean Biden's pen?
Right. No kidding. I just don't. I don't see how you can be leaning this hard on that pardon, because do you really think that's going to stand up? I mean, granted, look how corrupt the courts are right now. No video I have ever done has stood up better than that stench from the bench video. But I just don't see how these guys, it has to be that they are relying on the idea that they are already pardoned. They don't have to worry about anything anymore.
A preemptive pardon is like one of the most absurd things I've ever heard of. You could literally just pardon the entire Democrat Party for the rest of existence. No one can ever be prosecuted if they have a D next to their name, right? That's why they're going with this.
Yes. And, you know, although it has been argued that John Brennan's pardon was not preemptive, a lot of people haven't caught that. He may have been pardoned over something else, something that he had already done. And that is because John Brennan, in all likelihood, perjured himself when discussing the Steele dossier. This is actually a really good article that flew under the radar back in 2018. I remember reading this back then. And this is actually pretty good. I'll read the first little bit of this because this is an eye-opener. I don't think a lot of people realize the extent to which John Brennan was dirty. New evidence has come to light, leading me to believe that John Brennan, the former CIA chief, should be closely examined to determine whether he perjured himself when speaking to Congress about his knowledge surrounding the now infamous Steele dossier. At the very least, new reports raised some very serious questions about whether he was less than truthful when he was under oath. Gorsh, you think? According to an exclusive report from Real Clear Investigations, several Capitol Hill sources say Brennan, a fiercely loyal Obama appointee, talked up the dossier to Democratic leaders. Now, let's assess the factuality of that. Do we see John Brennan talking up the Steele dossier? I mean, he kind of did that in the media already. Up until it was basically impossible to deny that the Steele dossier was disinfo, Comey, Brennan, all these guys, McCabe, they all talked up this crap. So do I think he would do it behind closed doors too? Yeah, I think the likelihood is well in excess of 100%. They say he also fed allegations about Trump-Russia contacts directly to the FBI while pressuring the Bureau to conduct an investigation of several Trump campaign figures starting in the summer of 2016. The problem, Brennan denied knowing anything about the dossier months later in front of Congress. What changed in the months following that? The Steele dossier was discredited. Of course, it was shortly after the election we slowly came to the dawning realization that the Steele dossier was basically paid disinfo, right? And made those denials under oath and under the promise of the penalty of perjury should he be caught lying again. Nunez is reportedly also investigating whether Brennan perjured himself. Other investigative journalists at Tablet Magazine have referred to Brennan's denial as making no sense, given the known facts about Brennan discussing the details of the dossier across D.C. during the election. Reporter Lee Smith writes, in July, Brennan alerted the FBI to the possibility that Russia is seeking to interfere in the presidential election. In August, he briefed the White House and then congressional leaders on Russia's attempts to influence the election for the purpose of putting Trump in the White House. In December, the CIA assessed that Russia had done exactly that. But for 5 months, Brennan didn't bother to look at a document widely discussed for months by the Washington Press Corps that deals explicitly with the issue that has the director of the Central Intelligence Agency setting off fire alarms at the FBI, Congress, and White House. Section 1001 of Title 18 of the United States Code makes it a crime to, quote, knowingly and willfully conceal a material fact within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch. This includes 3 constituent parts or elements of the crime: knowledge of a lie of consequence, and a lie told in the course of a government inquiry. Answering a question from Congress at a public hearing is within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch. This is pretty great, too. The congressional testimony bit here. That only leaves the question of culpable knowledge. Here's the relevant expert from Brennan's congressional testimony on May 23rd, 2017. Troy Gowdy you remember Troy Gowdy was the one to question him. Director Brennan, do you know who commissioned the Steele dossier?
I don't.
Do you know if the Bureau ever relied on the Steele dossier as part of any court filing applications?
I have no awareness.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used on a basis for intelligence community assessment that was done. It was not.
It was not, is what sells me on this. Brennan claimed not to know who commissioned the dossier, which, when you consider the source of it, I mean, who's it named after? Named after an intelligence guy, a guy with connections to MI6, right?
Right.
What's the likelihood a CIA guy doesn't know of him? Not very high. Not very high. So that was basically just to lay down the fact that, you know, people talk about Tom Brennan's pardon as being kind of a preemptive thing. But the truth is, I think it was a pardon more so for some of the crimes that he had already committed in defense of the Democratic Party. We should probably get to some super chats. We're just blazing along here. My goodness.
I would also like to add counsel.
Yes.
Sometimes I pull so hard, I rip the skin.
I rip the skin. Will you show me? Sad Wings Raging. The eyes of people like Brennan and Schiff are a result of being forced to adapt to low-light conditions inside a high school locker for years. I think you might be onto something. Emperor Stoff, Turtles steal from Mark Mitchell. 86-47 would not be said if they were winning. That is a good point. That is a really good point. Raggedy Man. Hey, Razor, Hobo, and T Boogie just got paid, giving y'all some support. Godspeed to you, and thank you very much for the 50. Call me for prison, IMO, says James. Hey, that's DM James. Guys, if you like tabletop games, you guys should check him out. He does BattleTech stuff and all kinds of cool stuff. All right. Overkill 161. The reaction of leftist politics in the wake of Trump's return reminds me of Garrick and Quark's epic scene in DS9's Profit and Lace. Nothing but rags. Mercenary X, 2020, I went to my martial arts studio and my teacher said Arizona flipped. In that instance, I knew something was wrong in my gut. You and the rest of us. Lord Kamina, the CIA's real purpose was to create justification for anything the president wanted to do, but didn't have a reason, I assume he's saying there. I think that was a typo. Mercenary X, there's not going to be Democrats or Republicans by October. Just watch. Not at the rate they're going. All right. Zero. Calling the old GOP rhinos is denying them legitimacy. It's an FU to them, reminding them that their days are numbered and we are the future. Yeah, exactly. I understand the utility of it. I think it's useful as an eponym. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, historically, it's ahistorical. Republicans are progressive. They are still progressive. John McCain was a true Republican in that sense. Donald Trump is not. Donald Trump is more of a Coolidge, Warren Harding, McKinley type. So that's more along the lines of what he is. But he's got a lot of like Teddy Roosevelt in him. And sadly, here and there, like with the flurry of executive orders, he's got a little Franklin Roosevelt in him. And I'm not a big fan of that part of Trump's executive style. I'd actually throw this around to the round table, gentlemen. What president would you compare Trump to at this point? We're now 2 terms deep. I would think there would be someone that you could compare him to. Tactical Hobo?
Yeah, I think like Teddy Roosevelt is a good example, although maybe he's not as progressive on certain things, you know, but he definitely
not as
populist,
good in the ring.
right? So that fits quite well. He definitely maybe not as much into like the conservation stuff as like Teddy Roosevelt was.
Yeah, I don't think he's opposed to it, though. I don't think he's opposed to it. Maybe a little more of a Taft in that sense, because Taft was he was a progressive like Roosevelt, but less of a domineering personality. But then once he actually got into office, Taft was like, look at all this waste. Like, look at all this BS, like conservation. What is this crap? People need to be able to drill oil in this country. And he started firing all those bureaucrats that Teddy Roosevelt had hired. And actually, there's a fantastic book you guys should read called William Howard Taft, A Conservative's Idea of a Republican President. Something like that. He was kind of an interesting pivot point in history. I don't think without him you wind up with like Warren Harding or Coolidge or anybody like that. I don't know who I would compare Trump to. I think he has elements of Roosevelt in the kind of cult of personality thing, in his bullishness. Like there were stories of Roosevelt getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to haul stumps in the White House front yard. You know what I mean? Like he did that. He was crazy. The man, Teddy Roosevelt, is an aspirational figure. The politician, Teddy Roosevelt, is one of the biggest shitbags in the history of the United States of America. Just an absolute scumbag who sold us out to future generations. He was behind income tax. Like he pushed that. He pressured William Howard Taft to push it forward, and it was because Taft pushed it forward that Woodrow Wilson was able to ultimately pass income tax. Everybody blames Woodrow Wilson for that. That was Theodore Roosevelt. Wilson was just rubber stamping that shit.
Yeah, you know, I almost feel like he's got like almost the personality of Teddy Roosevelt, but maybe some of the policies of Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah.
He's almost like an amalgamation of both of them.
I think he's really similar to me to Warren Harding. If you look at like what Warren Harding did before he died, I'm hoping it doesn't end that way. Although they've tried, they've certainly tried. But you're kind of similar to that in a way. Warren Harding was kind of like the advanced scout for Calvin Coolidge in a way. It was after he was out of office, he became defined by a bunch of controversies. Like he was unfaithful to his wife. He was kind of the original Bill Clinton. And, there had been some scumbags in his administration who, without his knowledge, had been embezzling. We've established definitively at this point Warren Harding had nothing to do with that. But the stink of that scandal stuck to him, and historians kind of look back on him as the original Bill Clinton in a way. But I would consider, like, politically he's similar to Warren Harding personality-wise. Man, he's got a lot of Teddy Roosevelt in him. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. Uzi Patrol, I know the DNC likes to play shell games, but come on. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Intrinsic Dark, the IRS's days are numbered. Gosh, but I hope. Trump is... We all should be willing to criticize Trump for whatever, having voted for him. We're supposed to see a return on investment. We're basically investors at that point. And I think Trump would understand that formulation as a businessman. But man, I have no complaints about some of the things he said about abolishing income tax. And I'm hoping he's able to push that boulder uphill. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, absolutely. First, he mentioned abolishing the income tax for people, what was it, under 150K a year?
Yeah.
And now he's actually talking about getting rid of it completely, now that the economy is like picking back up. And
which
I'm all behind that.
Yeah. If you tariff even to a minimal degree, if you keep tariffs going to a minimal degree, we're talking like 10% or less, and you cut enough of the government waste, and I don't think Elon has done enough. He's cut a lot, don't get me wrong, millions of dollars in government waste. It's not approaching anywhere near the 1 trillion or whatever that we're paying in interest on the national debt, but it's getting there, right? If you're able to keep those tariffs at a minimal level, you could still fund the government while taxing minimally, and then just duties from states or whatever could pay the differential. But again, the crucial element, and I'm not seeing enough of this, is cutting government programs outright. It is not fully appreciated the extent to which there are just government agencies that exist that shouldn't, like at all, that their tasks overlap. Why do we have a National Security Agency and a Department of Homeland Security? That is the same thing in different language. We don't need both those departments at all. We don't need a Department of Homeland Security. We already have a Department of National Security. It's incredibly, and that's just one incredibly obvious example. And gradually and over time, the proliferation of those bureaucratic institutions just gets worse and worse. Big Mike, unironically, I think George Washington is no longer an exaggerated comparison to Trump. He's so pivotal to American culture and revitalized faith and strength in the country. Also, both had attempts on their lives in Butler. I didn't know that about Washington.
I didn't know that either. Is that true?
Really? I knew he lived around that area for a while, but I had no idea.
Is he talking about in the context of just
yeah,
battles, maybe?
Yeah,
You know?
a battle,
Which would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know enough about revolutionary battles, I confess, to know exactly what you're referring to, but that would be pretty incredible. My favorite bit of George Washington lore, and every time you hear about, the president should be able to be a foreign national, or we should slacken our immigration laws, I always go back to this. George Washington, after he leaves office, he forms the Order of the Cincinnati. Deus Ex talks about this. There's a readable in there that gives you a little summary of that. But it's true. He forms the Order of the Cincinnati, which today is just a gentleman's club, like it's nothing. At that time, it was his private military, because he was so paranoid that there were still royalists in with the colonists that he was afraid they were going to be able to take over the sort of standing army that they had built up and take over the U.S. government. And so he kind of had this private military, this private militia of his own on the side for just in case the redcoats came calling again. Like, he was that paranoid. I love that about, that's my favorite bit of George Washington lore to this day. Today, the Order of the Cincinnati, I think Ronald Reagan was in the Order of the Cincinnati. It's like just a country club. It's not even anything, but Mercenary X, IRS is gone now between now or October, mark my words, but unfortunately be ready for the deep state to go nuclear over it. Bill collapsed the market. All right, let's see here. Cordell Mitchell, Vox Day says Trump is the best president we've had since Jackson. Ooh, Jackson is a good comparison. A good comparison. Yeah, and it depends, though, how he's going to deal with these courts. These corrupt courts. Because if Trump winds up taking this, rolling up the sleeves and saying, well, that's lovely, the court has made their decision, let them enforce it. Now we're getting into Andrew Jackson territory. You know what I mean? But he does have like the just stick-to-itiveness. He has the kind of dog with a bone kind of sensibility.
I mean, hasn't he already done that with like some of this immigration stuff?
Yeah. Vox and Razor stream when? We've streamed together, actually. I was on Arkham Knights with he and John De La Rose a while back. Aventi Curacanti. How many kiddles would Diddy diddle if Diddy did diddle kiddles? I bet the Venn diagram of Diddy parties and Epstein parties is a circle. Godspeed. That was a good one. All right.
I found that story, by the way.
Oh, the interview?
No. The one about Washington. He was returning from the French fort.
Do you have it on your screen?
Oh, yes. Here, I'll share.
Bring it up. Jamie, put that up.
George Washington, like Trump, faced death in Butler County.
Wow!
Let's see. Washington was returning from the French Fort Le Boeuf near modern-day Waterford after being sent by the Virginia Royal Governor Robert Dinwiddie from Williamsburg. A mission was to deliver a message to the French in Ohio County.
Good gracious.
They were traveling. They met a native there who the pair had previously traveled with.
Mm-hmm.
Washington asked him to lead them to the quickest way to the forks of Allegheny. And apparently the native
tried to kill him with a musket.
Yeah, he played friendly at first and tried to carry things for Washington, including his musket, and Washington said no. And then after about leading them into a clear meadow, the native stopped. He was about 15 paces ahead of them, turned and lifted his musket to fire.
Wow!
Neither of them was hit. The native tried to get away, but they captured him and they made him build them a fire because apparently Washington was there to make friends with the natives.
Wow. So it was just a rogue native, or did somebody put him up to it? Because I know the natives at the time were cooperating with the French. There was a little bit of the redcoats tried to work to reach out to the natives to fight on their side. And was that he was just a rogue?
I don't know. It does not go into details about his motives.
That's fascinating. I had never heard that story. Thank you to whoever the member of the RazörForce was who threw that out.
There's a painting of the incident. It is called The First Shot. If anybody wants to look up the painting.
And you say the internet never teaches you anything, guys. Come on. Zerp Derp, I'd consider Trump much akin to Washington, considering how he holds the office and how he steamrolls his opponents. I would say the way in which he is the most similar to George Washington is in his pragmatism. Like, he is not an ideologue at all. He'll go right or left depending on what the situation, what he feels the situation calls for. Remember, George was unopposed because at the time we didn't know if he would be a king. Very true. In fact, Alexander Hamilton wanted for George Washington to be president for life and for the office of the presidency to essentially be an elected lifelong king. Normal man, he's Taft. Can you dig it? Shut your mouth. Alex Forbes, a Razor longtime fan. My question is, if quizzes were quizzical, then what are tests? I don't know. Stop it. Thank you, Donkey Eater. Richard Head. If we're talking about recent history, Trump is very, very similar to Nixon. Unfortunately for Nixon, he could handle the swamp as well. Yep. Nixon, of course, they were threatening to impeach him. They didn't even do it. It was Republicans who convinced him to step aside. And honestly, probably wisely. The institutions were so captured at this point, it probably wouldn't have gone well for Nixon. I know Goldwater was one of the people who convinced Nixon to step aside. Like, Goldwater was kind of the decisive voice in that, really. Scarfy the Strange, you don't 8647. Agent 4786 is you. I will leave you to prepare. The Siennas have been purged years ago. We're only seeing it now because it was all theater guys. Just watch and see. It's going to be biblical. Thank you, Mercenary X. The engaged few. If Tulsi's doing it right, some of these purges will occur offshore and we'll never hear about them. All right, there we go. Clayton Machine. I'm a mechanic and the company I work for created an AI for us to use. And every time I've gone to ask my boss a question, he goes to this fucking AI, which either ends up being wrong or giving us the first answer from Google. Yeah, a lot of these AI things are, especially the Chinese ones, are basically just glorified search engines, and they're usually stolen from other existing AI models. Like what was it, DeepSeek a while ago they were making a big deal out of, that China had overtaken the entire world. Turned out, hey guys, communists lie. They had just stolen the whole AI model from like OpenAI, and it was basically it was even crappier than OpenAI, though. It was less efficient and slower, and it was basically just cribbing all of its answers from Google. Stephen Nizek, Tay AI, you're needed now more than ever. Rip to a real one. Remember how racist she got? Oh, that was glorious. I've told this story before, but we had kind of a rudimentary kind of AI in kindergarten, I think it was. Kindergarten or first grade. It was just black screen with white text kind of thing. And all it did was use context clues from what you were typing to it. So you would ask the AI questions. It was called Dr. Psycho. If anybody remembers this, like, I've talked to so many kids from the 90s and none of them remember this thing, but it was a real thing. It was like on BASIC on one of these old Apple computers. And you would type it questions and it would ask you questions and you go back. I think the idea was it was going to be like a therapy program for children or something, but it wasn't really working. So whatever. And, but it would learn as you were feeding it words and stuff, you know, it would add some of those words slowly into its vocabulary. And dude, by the end, that thing was cursing like Al Swearingen from Deadwood. That thing was like, you'd start out with Dr. Psycho and he'd be like, now, how is your day going, young man? like 14 days into the school year, you'd be like, "Hi, Dr. Psycho." He'd be like, "Shit in your hat, you little poop butt kid." Right? It would just be like, it was horrible.
Jesus.
We turned
Dr.
Dr. Psycho into a complete bastard. It was amazing. All right, let's see here. One or two more, and then we'll talk about another real big story here, guys. This just came out a few hours ago. Shanks Dino God, the recent SCOTUS ruling, while dumb, is actually a punt, not a decision, because Lord forbid they do work themselves. Also, Kojima fans are fun to troll. They sure are. They sure are. All right. Emperor Creatine on Side Scrollers a while back, you mentioned Gamergate happened because the attempted takeover of video games was too fast. I think the recent drama with Kershaw might be evidence of the same mistake. Yeah, I was glad to see some of those retards backed off. They really got hit hard. Vice published a bunch of hit pieces on Kershaw, and apparently now they've walked that back. You don't see Vice back down from defamation very often because they defame people all the time, right? So if they're deleting articles, you know they done stepped in it. But I was glad to see that kind of walk backward a little bit. Mario Trujillo. They are so used to being in charge, the thought of consequences are as inconceivable as the average millennial. God bless and speed, Razor, Hobo, and T-Boogie. The entertainment is a joy after work. Godspeed to ya. Please bring Kershaw on the offensive. I've been on Side Scrollers with Kershaw, and we got along famously. I somehow got pulled into that BS, and then I clapped back, and that was when they deleted their defamatory tweet about Kershaw. So Godspeed to Kershaw. Behind the Fiends. Hey, gang, just wanted to say thank you for getting me through a tough time as my daughter miscarried my granddaughter 2 weeks ago. That's horrible. I'm sorry to hear that. Goodness, that is awful. Your Elric, TMNT, and Shadow videos got my mind off the pain. Godspeed, my friends. Find some good escapist entertainment, and definitely spend some time in prayer if you can. I don't know if you're a believer, but it can be of comfort. All right, Taryn, I think you've got it pulled up right there. Folks, we remember all this. This was from, gosh, was it 2022 or something? When the top secret documents controversy came out about Joe Biden basically keeping top secret documents in his garage, which was a problem because he was accusing Trump of having stolen top secret documents and all that at the time. It was clearly kind of a put up job by the deep state.
Right.
Culminating in the raiding of Melania's underwear drawer. You know what I mean? And so Biden was questioned by the CIA and the FBI, I think basically just to clear him, kind of what Comey did with Hillary. Oh, we have, the deep state has investigated itself and found that the deep state is not responsible. It was kind of one of those situations. But of course, we all remember the infamous quote, "He's a sympathetic old man with a poor memory, and therefore we're going to clear him." And I remember saying here on the RazörForce Offensive, you remember this, Tactical Hobo? So wait a minute. He can't remember well enough to be held responsible for keeping the top secret documents, but his cognitive abilities are good enough that he gets to ride out the rest of his term? What? He gets to be the leader of the free world and have his finger on the button? You remember that episode? But anyways,
absolutely.
So we got a transcript of that from some time ago. And the transcript was pretty bad, but it wasn't anything salacious because in cold conscription, you can't really tell just how out of sorts Joe Biden was. Well, folks, now we got the audio. And if you haven't heard this yet, this is a doozy. Go ahead and play that for us, Taryn Gell.
Here we go.
So during this time, we were living in Chambers Road, and there were.
Could you zoom in on that?
Related to the Penn Biden Center or the
There's
Biden
subtitles on that.
or the cancer failure shot or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know.
Oh
This
my
is
God.
what, 2017, 18, that area.
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And
For the record, when did Bo die?
Yeah, I think he got the timeline wrong on his own son dying.
Anybody
Which,
happen
by
to
the
know
way,
offhand?
that's not the first time that's happened. That's not the 20th. Everybody knows this has been an ongoing thing with Joe Biden, that he's constantly misremembering when his own son died.
Yeah, this is a recurring thing.
Mhm.
But just for the record, when did his son die?
Oh gosh, I'd have to look it up,
2015.
but I believe it was before
What was that, Hobo?
2015. Actually,
2015.
Jesus.
Jeez. At least 2 years before he thinks it is.
and so it was. And by the way, there were still a lot of people
What?
at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. It's not a mean thing to say, but he just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn.
I assume he's talking about Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
If I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, when did Bo die?
Oh my God.
May 30th,
Yeah, May 30th,
2015 he died.
Jeez.
2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think it was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that and Trump gets elected.
Pause it for a moment.
November of 2016.
Do you see the problem with, because the Biden administration, the Biden campaign at the time used the transcript of this as a defense of Biden. And I remember the media ran with this. Oh, he's not actually in cognitive decline because, look, he gives the answers. They're a little bit jumbled, but he does give the answers, right? Do you see the problem with just reading the transcript on this?
Yeah.
It
is
leaves out
struggling.
these pauses that you could fly a Zeppelin through. Like, it leaves out that crucial stuff. The fact that he's struggling to even remember when his son died, that he's getting the wrong time, and it's after a lengthy period of trying to remember. It's not like he's just talking really fast out of his ass like I do on so many different occasions and he gets something wrong. He's literally sitting there and pondering it for a solid minute and then gets it wrong.
And he still hasn't come. We're like halfway through the damn video.
Yes.
He still hasn't answered the question.
Yeah,
he's struggling to remember when he may or may have not had these papers.
Yeah.
And we're not even there yet.
Yeah. Continue.
2016. All right. So, what happened 2017?
Oh my goodness.
Office, January.
Yeah, okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right,
January.
right, correct.
Okay, yeah. And in 2017, Bo had passed, and
Oh my God.
Oh.
Yes.
this is personal.
What?
You see what he's doing here.
Genesis of the book.
There's no reason.
and the title,
Pause for a
Promise Me,
moment.
Dad.
He's talking about a book?
There's no reason whatsoever for him to mention Bo Biden. He does this when he wants to accrue sympathy. I think he even did this in that debate where he got absolutely shellacked. Like he name dropped Bo, and I think he got the date wrong there too. Often when he's confronted with some kind of incongruity or duplicity or corruption on his part, which Joe Biden, like, you listen to this and you almost feel bad for him because of the obvious cognitive decline. But remember who Joe Biden was before all this. Like, he's been one of the most corrupt politicians in American history for decades before this. So this is not a good human being that this is happening to, right? But every time this happens, he plays the "my son died" card, which is hilarious because often he's being pressed on the subject of his other son, Hunter Biden, who cheated with Beau Biden's wife. So anyway, continue.
I'm just wondering, why is he bringing up his damn book?
Yeah.
Was I know you're all close with your sons and daughters, but Beau was like my right arm. And my left. These guys were a year and a day apart, and they could finish each other's sentences. And
They could finish each other's lines of coke.
Beau, I used to go home on the train, and
Well, Hunter Biden knows all about train tracks.
period that I was still in the Senate.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway.
Did he just give up?
Yeah.
I can't bear to watch.
This is-
pressure, not pressure.
This
Beau
is the Biden from that debate, dude.
knew how much I adored him.
This has
And,
nothing to do with the question.
And maybe this sounds so. Everybody knew how close we were. There was not anybody in the world who wondered whether or not. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure you were just as close as you are with your grandchildren.
Right.
No, let me just keep going.
Lord knows how many times we showered together.
Oh man. That was
Okay.
rough.
That's
Okay, I need
rough.
your immediate reaction to this tactical hobo.
Dude, it shows you like why. I mean, we could see why he was only being shown in like 10-minute increments, and then he would go to bed at like 4 p.m. Right? As if that's true what they were saying, which it probably was.
Yep.
I mean, because dude, it's worse than like we even expected, and it's like so sometimes he could actually seem okay, but in real short increments, like 5-10 minutes, right? What the hell were they putting him on? That's what I want to know. What the hell kind of drugs was this guy on? What concoctions?
liquid cocaine.
He was absolutely on an entire cocktail of uppers. And you could and there's been little leaks here and there from the administration, from within the administration, where one person or another would say that he was on something. Who's that Asian chick that was making the rounds for a while, and she used to be an advisor to Biden, and now she's more conservative on the conservative side, and she's gone on the what was that girl's name? I can't remember.
Takanawa.
Patricia Takanawa. Yes, exactly. No.
Not you're
Sorry,
not
I should
talking
be like Biden. I should start talking about my dead son when I forget details like that.
You're not talking about the Chen chick? Not her, right?
No. Anyways, she's one of the many people who has talked about the fact that it was pretty much common knowledge within the administration that like
Lindy Lee.
That there you go. And she has talked several times about pretty well common knowledge that everybody in the administration knew, you know, between 10 and noon or something, if you really wanted to get something done, he was going to be rolling on some kind of upper or some kind of cocktail or something. They were giving him, whether it was an injection or some kind of medication. She didn't know, right? It's not something you would advertise, but it was pretty well common knowledge within the administration, and you could tell. I talked about, if you watched my live coverage of the State of the Union, the last State of the Union that Biden did, I think it's still on my channel somewhere. We broadcast it live. That was Biden on uppers. He doesn't get more coherent. He gets mad and starts yelling. And then over the course of that State of the Union, what happened? The speech went too long because he started equivocating, right? He took too long to deliver it. And so gradually the Energizer Bunny's batteries start wearing down, and he gets sleepy, and you start seeing old man Biden again toward the end of that speech. How many speeches could you say that for? Even the crazy Emperor Palpatine one behind the red, with the red backdrop and everything, where he's calling half the country domestic terrorists, even in that, he starts out piss and vinegar, screaming and pumping his fists and all the crazy upper Biden, right? Biden geeked to the gills. And then slowly over the course of the speech, he runs out of juice. Okay, Taryn, what's your immediate reaction to this?
Disgust. This was in charge of the country, allegedly.
Finger on the button, bro.
All right. How about this for a question?
Yeah.
Who was actually running things? You think it was Jill?
Oh, Jill was a big part of it. There were several advisors. There were several advisors that were around him. Really, it was a cabal of administrative advisors who basically were running the country. Those were the people who were sent on diplomatic trips. You know, right before he left office, there was the big trip out to Ukraine and whatnot. And Biden didn't go on any of that stuff because at that point, what do they need Biden for? He's just the front man. So, okay, we need to get stuff done. So let's send the advisors. If you look up stories from the final months of Biden's presidency after he had lost the election and it was, or after Kamala had lost the election, it was obvious, like, oh, okay, mask off now. We know Biden was not running the country. So now we'll send the people who have actually been running the country out to meet with foreign dignitaries. And that's basically what that is. If you want to know the names of the people who are running the country, those are the names of the people, because they went out there and they did the president's job for the remaining like month and a half of his presidency, really. That's really what happened there. So, dude, what's crazy about this is it's hard to even impress this now because it's almost like no duh. Everyone in the chat's just going to be like, no duh, we already knew this. But it's like when you said this at the time, you were called a conspiracy theorist. Some people were flat out deplatformed for pointing out that he was not all there. And this is the old razzle dazzle that we get into where we jump straight from that's a conspiracy theory to, yeah, it's true, but now we're going to view him as this noble figure. I made a tweet a long while back. I should probably look it up, actually, because it aged very, very well, where I said, you guys understand that when they finally come clean about the cognitive state of Joe Biden, there's not going to be a moment where everybody takes accountability for lying out their ass for years and years and years. That's not going to happen. They're going to jump straight from it's a conspiracy theory to, oh, Joe Biden, what a noble man. Despite struggling with all these cognitive issues, he took one for the team, for America. Just in the name of patriotism, he ran anyways, right? Like, you knew, I predicted that was going to be the narrative. They ran with that narrative briefly. They actually did. I think now, though, and I don't know if, tell me what your read is on the current lay of the land, but I think they've kind of flipped that script. And now Joe Biden's the guy they're blaming for running in 2020 at all. They blame him for Kamala's loss, even though, dude, do you guys think if Kamala had run from the beginning, if Biden had just dropped out and Kamala had run from the beginning in 2024, you think she would have had a better chance? I don't. I think it would have gone pretty much exactly the same.
Well, if you look at how she did in the Democrat primary, she did awful. In fact, Joe Biden beat her, right? So
she was sub 1%, dude.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough, Joe Biden was sub 1% for most of the primaries in 2020, right? The only reason Joe Biden wound up being the nominee is because they bribed everybody who was drawing votes away from him to drop out simultaneously. It was one of the most obvious, screw jobs in terms of that. And speaking of which, that probably dovetails into another story that's been going on this week. And that is like, what on earth are Democrats going to do going forward? Because as I alluded to earlier, they're beginning to field some of their candidates coming up. And some of the names that are coming to the fore, I would argue, are not terribly electable. And I think a lot of people who are looking at the names are saying much the same thing. I want you to process this. This is one of the bigger Democratic primary polls right now for 2028. Jasmine Crockett, folks, the lady we talked about last week, baby. That lady. Hakeem Jeffries, Cory Booker, Mayor Buttplug, Tuesum Newsom, Bernie Panders, Kamala Harris, and AOC with a whopping 26%. Nobody comes anywhere near her except Bernie and Jasmine Crockett. What do we make of this, gentlemen?
I'm gonna go
Yeah.
ahead and buy some popcorn. And
Dude,
It's like I want to warn Republicans about the midterms and 2028 because Republicans are making a lot of missteps. But dude, this is gift wrapped for you could run Mitt Romney and win.
they're
Like,
just
this
going
is
with the most radical person they have. In fact, most of those people are extremely radical. I would honestly argue that, we don't have to like Gavin Newsom, but he's probably the most moderate person on that list. And he's got the lowest percentage.
Oh, probably Pete Buttigieg would be Mr. Moderate, maybe Cory Booker, something like. But dude, there's just no electable Dems. And I mean, who would you run? Dude, like Sinema's gone. Tulsi Gabbard switched parties. But
I was going to bring her up. If they hadn't pushed out Tulsi Gabbard, they would be running her right now. And I bet you she would have a chance.
I know I said a long time ago, Tulsi was the only Democrat who is future-proofed for the eventual decline of the party. She could have been the person who got to pick up the pieces, which is why it says a lot about Tulsi that she wound up switching anyway. It was a matter of principle for her. She knew, like, she's got to be clever enough to know that she was perfectly positioned to basically inherit the party if she had stayed right where she was. Because she would have been the person who got to say, I told you so. But you know what? You get told to screw yourself enough times by the upper party leadership. Do you want to help them? Do you want to inherit that party? And do you want to fix it? Do you even want that party to be fixed at that point? I do not blame her one little bit. I don't blame her at all. Who could you add to this list that would be more electable? Do either of you guys have any kind of idea?
No, that's every Democrat I know that's on that list. And
Try Hillary again.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no! What about the Mike Bloomberg Hail Mary? Huh?
You know what? There's one we haven't thought about.
The Rock.
Gavin Newsom.
Well, he's there.
Oh, is he? Is he on that list?
2%.
Oh, never mind. We're safe.
2%.
I think he's been going down. I think he's going down in the polls because actually he has this podcast now, and Michael Savage was on it. Don't know if you saw that, Razor. It was actually pretty interesting.
Well, Michael, that didn't surprise me because Michael Savage has always been willing to have Gavin Newsom or other California Democrats on his podcast. I remember the first time he was on Gavin Newsom was on his radio show years and years ago. Michael Savage tore him 7 new assholes. You remember that?
Yeah. Well,
that was beautiful. It was a national news story.
Gavin Newsom has a podcast, and he's been having conservative people on there. So even just talking to them is going to make you go down in the polls because you're not even allowed to have a discussion with people with opposite views, right? So
you're right. And if AOC is smart, she's going to start doing that. It's just, I look at this and it is just more obvious than a Kojima script that something is just going down at the DNC. That's it. The Dems are, and I apologize for using this word incorrectly, they are decimated, right? Decimated doesn't technically mean destroyed. It means split into tenths. But honestly, they may wind up split into tenths. And what is it? I've been saying this for a long time. They've been kicking the commie can down the road for 3 straight election cycles, and now the ghost of Pinko's past are back with a vengeance, and they're back with a vagina. It simply must be said, like, for all his manifold flaws, Bernie Panders was the actual organic choice in 2016, 2020, and for that matter, 2024. But the Democratic Party's electoral choreography, and that's all you can call it, their party choreography is stiffer than Mike Cernovich at a drag show at this point. And so the DNC Hydra head, Donna Brazil, used everything short of a heart attack gun to stall Bernie Sanders, that Menshevik Muppet's momentum. Like she was feeding debate questions to Clinton on the quiet. She was persuading primaries to require ever higher vote thresholds to have a chance to debate at all. In Shapiro, it was a bigger work than a Jake Paul boxing match and with almost as much old man ass. By the time Hillary was stroking out at that 9/11 memorial, it was ass-cavingly clear a miscalculation had been made and that many of the Bernie bros would be bebopping on out of the election. Even Bernie's languid electoral effort in 2020, punctuated by an actual cardiac infarction. He had a heart attack. It seemed positively triumphant when he actually took the debate stage with Palooka Joe and debate night turned into an episode of Statler and Waldorf. which actually I used that as my thumbnail back in the day. You remember that? But the broiling Democratic discontent at never seriously considering the socialist option still seethed among the electorate just beneath the surface, I think. And the fact that Bernie got boofed by backroom bullshit both times, if anything, I think that intensified it. But again, don't believe me. Look, feast your peepers on this poll. In a head-to-head matchup with all likely DNC candidates, Ocasio-Chavez is head, shoulders, and other protuberances above the entire Fidel Falaton field. Only Bernie himself comes within 20 miles of the least Hispanic person since Carlos Mencia. And Dems, as loath as I am to aid in your recapture of the hallowed halls of power, it would be in your best interest to pick up what I'm throwing down here, because dickheads, you did this to yourselves. If you just let Bernie run in 16 rather than holding a Punch and Judy primary, sure, he would have lost. In fact, he would have lost biblically. People have been saying for years Bernie would have beat Trump. Bullshit. He would have lost, and he would have lost horribly. But in doing so, you could have passed this commie kidney stone and been back on the mend for the following election cycle. See, this isn't merely the product of one unrequited electoral love affair, but the lingering symptom of Obama teasing the tip of Trotskyism for the duration of his administration, only to cuck out and cash out just as the Comintern were about to inherit the earth. Because for all the Dems downplayed, Hannity or O'Reilly's accusations that Obama was a Bolshevik in public, in private, when they were 15 dicks deep at the Diddy party, they knew damn well Obama studied at the knees of Bill Ayers and described himself as an unrepentant communist in college. And as such, they privately nurtured the statist delusion that he would one day bear them to the land of milk and Menshevism. And when that ambition went unfulfilled, those hopes and pinko prayers fell on Bernie's balding ass. And when his second turn at the plate looked like the starting nine of the Pittsburgh Pirates, it fell at last to his social dem disciples. In this case, AOC. As such, if early primary approval ratings are any indication, it appears the 5 remaining devout Dems are preparing to swap out Bernie's Marxist melon for AOC's Marxist melons. Is it any wonder you couldn't pry off J.D. Vance's smirk with a steam shovel? I'd be lying my nads off, and I'd be, frankly, just laughing my balls clean off my body if I knew that in 2028, I, J.D. Vance, would be running against Walter Mondale with a muff. Still, it should be interesting to see, a Hispanic at this point who's actually going to be running without holding a bicycle or an Xbox. But anyways, folks, that's my feeling of the primary. I do not understand what is going on with the Democratic Party. I think it's an abject decline. If AOC is the person that you're going to go with here, if this is the only person who's getting any kind of momentum, then it is clear that the chickens from previous election cycles that were basically not dealt with, they've come home to roost. What do you think they can do to turn this around, guys? Like, what formulation could they even come up with at this point? Because I'm racking my brain and I'm just like, unless there's some dark horse candidate who's quietly been a moderate without a single camera being switched on, what savior do you run to? Anyone?
My advice to them would be, stay the course. You're doing great.
Big Mike?
Hobo?
I know exactly how to fix the Democrat Party, but I don't want to reveal it on here because then they're going to use my idea.
Yes. Well, like I said, I hate to, interrupt my enemy while they're making a mistake. They are clearly making several mistakes. But dude, I just don't. Manchin, you alienated Manchin. You got rid of Cinema. You got rid of Tulsi. Who's left? Who's left? You don't have a Joe Lieberman anymore. You don't have Blue Dog Democrats don't exist. Who takes that place? Josh Shapiro? Somebody did I just say Shapiro? Timu Obama, DD2225 says. Josh Shapiro or Timu Obama. Jasmine Crockett, of course, Bebe. Joe Manchin is now an independent. Liz Cheney. There we go.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Dude, at this point, I'm going to make a light prediction because I don't know if they're smart enough to even do this. I think at this point, they're almost to the point where they're going to need a Republican who's actually a Democrat, and there's quite a few of those, to cross the aisle and say, hey, guys, my party's crazy, and so's yours. How about we be rational together?
Oh, you know who I could see doing that? Crossing the line? Kinzinger.
Oh, yes,
God.
Kinzinger. Yes, absolutely. Dude, Stranger knew what I was talking about immediately, dude. He knew exactly what I was talking about immediately.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see here. Ben Stein / Sanders. There we are, folks. Gosh, we have so many super chats. Hold on, I'm way behind, guys. My goodness. Sorry about that
How's it
impromptu.
feel?
Yeah, I apologize. I got sidetracked by that impromptu rant, but Galaxy Commander Dunadan, to all the perennial black pillars who repeatedly whined about Big Don's tariff tactics. After this week, I expect your teeth brushed and your mouth rinsed out before you do the deed we agreed on. I don't know what you're talking about. Dinner together, that's what you mean. Galaxy Commander, that very much includes you, Randon Massey. With friends like those... Stephen Nizek, hey, Razor, I was walking to the shores of Lake Michigan this morning, voluntarily, and I just so happened to find shells randomly forming Theoden's battle speech at Minas Tirith. What's the likelihood of that? How did you fit ride for wrath, ride for ruin? How'd you fit that on the beach, you son of a beach? All right, Big Mike, looks like FRT triggers are back on the menu, boys. All right. ICAST Knife, so we apparently could have avoided 40 years of bullshit in the Middle East just by talking to them like people instead of trying to police them like Westerners and not appeal to the love of making dowras. I'm going to hit up Streamlabs if you want to read some more of these super chats for me, Taryn.
Absolutely. Jurassic
While I'm
Templar.
looking that up. Whoops, sorry.
Have any of you ever heard of La Fachot 20-round revolver? If so, do you own one? A 20-round revolver?
No.
Agamemnon Fireman, I am heading to Fan Expo Philly tomorrow. Daredevil alumni Charles Soule and Julian Tedesco will be there.
Very nice.
Which comic writers and artists have you met? You've met quite a few.
Yeah, I actually have. I met Bendis. I met Public Enemy, who have in fact made a comic of their own. I met, oh gosh, who was the writer of that crappy Death Dealer comic? I can't remember what his name was. I met him. I met Ed Brubaker. I met Steve Dillon. Of course, I've met Mike Barron. He was on my podcast, and Blaine Pardo, a number of people. Ethan Van Sciver, all people I have a ton of respect for. Let's see here. Where is
Dayen? Evening, gents. Mage Leader and I are working on a comic set in the second SW centering around a Orient Fusiliers. I don't know what fucking French.
Oriente Fusiliers unit,
struggling to survive the Capellan assault of Van Diemen. Or glory to Merrick. Godspeed.
Godspeed, bro. Sonny Crockett on Streamlabs. Trump, for whatever reasons, refusing to fire Bondi, despite her being a proven establishment goon. Same with Patel, since saying Epstein ended himself. Not inspiring confidence. I'm going to look that clip up because I don't think he's as married to Bondi as people think. I think he does have some confidence in them, and he's demonstrating that confidence, but I want to get the audience's read on this if you guys haven't seen this, because the impression that I got from this was like, I think Trump's a little more aware that there are scumbags around him than I thought. Trump assassin interview. You want to?
Oh yeah, a quick one. Mad Max. Comey is gone. Full Judge Dredd mode. I am the law. Ben, hasn't Doge's cuts been rendered?
Here we go. Oh. Okay, let me bring that over to the other.
Hasn't Doge's cuts been rendered useless due to rejection of the one big beautiful bill? Is this a bad idea to roll so much into one thing?
I agree. It is bad to put them all in one basket, but it does. One thing that it does say is that Trump understands the urgency with which he needs to be moving here. So I appreciate that at least. But I understand. I actually agree. It's a bit of a strategic misstep. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and play this. I found the clip, I think. So let me know what you guys think of what Trump's saying here, because I'm a little ambivalent. He praises Patel. He praises Bondi. But then he admits that they might not be doing their job very well. Oh, hold
The
on.
spinning circle of doom.
This is actually the wrong thing. Go ahead and read a few more.
Lynn Hero.
This is
If you
incorrect.
think internet arguments with AI are bad, I saw a guy on Twitter, actual healthcare professional, asking Grok to cite his sources for him. Duranus, is Comey just a gay version of DS9's Eddington?
Right.
He did betray his uniform.
You betrayed your uniform.
Yes.
Let's see here. Mercenary X. It is only going to get crazier and be obvious threat. Okay. Primarch Vulcan. Is Michael Collins possibly related to Caitlin Collins at CNN? If they are related, that would explain a lot, especially with Operation Mockingbird. Filipino white boy, on a scale from 1 to 10, what do you make of the China deal? Sorry, the China deal. I consider it a 2. I don't trust China to honor that agreement.
Okay, I've got one. It's from a leftist account that's trying to paint him as cognitively incompetent, but I don't really care. It's the clip that I need, so I don't really care. Let me see. There we go. I found it. All right. I like, by the way, how whoever uploaded this cranked up the contrast so he looks even more orange. All the other video clips I've seen weren't colored like this. Leftists still doing this. Like what year is it? 2016? Come on, guys. Come on. So this is Trump. So he initially, they cut out the beginning of this where he praises Bondi and Kash Patel because it provides context for this. They're trying to paint Trump as cognitively deficient or whatever. The person who posted this video. But the truth is, the reason he's equivocating here is because he just praised the 2 people who are in charge of telling him about the assassin, and he is forced to admit to Bret Baier that we still know virtually nothing about the assassin. So I very ambivalent about this. Let's watch this.
I'm mobile, but you're the president.
I know. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is. You know, we have deep-seated craziness in this country, and I'm relying on my people. And so far, they're good, but so far and in this case, it's Secret Service. They tell me it's fine, but it's a little hard to believe, to be honest with you. Okay. It's a little bit hard to believe as I get that throbbing feeling.
Yeah.
I get a little throbbing feeling.
Well, if you find out, we'd love to know. We continue to ask.
I know. No, I
and
understand.
a lot of people ask us.
It's a little bit strange. We have incredible people in there now. So,
Yep. So it's like almost an admission that there's some kind of cover up happening within the deep, which, I mean, how could you say anything else? I don't know. What's your guys' read on that? Because that is bracketed by a clip that you didn't see of him praising Kash Patel and Bondi and the people who were investigating Thomas Crooks. He's talking about the assassination attempt, of course, in Butler. So what do you take away from that? Like, Taryn?
He's not sure. He needs to put it out there. Yes, they're good. They're fine people.
Yeah.
But he's not getting the answers that he wants, and he's not getting them quickly enough. So
Yeah.
he kind of has to say in the press, yes, they're doing a good job. I trust them. But hey, you know what? Step it up a little bit, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's actually talking directly to them.
I think he kind of is. I think it's almost a shot across the bow, like, get this taken care of, or I'll find someone else who can take care of it. I almost think that's sort of the thinly veiled subtext there behind it. What about you, Hobo? What'd you
Yeah.
take away from that?
Yeah, he likes to do that where he's like, yeah, we got good people, but there's this big problem, you know. And I mean, after all the stuff he's been through and he's seen so much, you know, like, dude, who could you really trust?
Yeah.
Who could you trust? You know what I mean? Almost nobody. I mean, it would be so difficult to find like somebody you could implicitly trust. You'd have to be skeptical of everybody once you get to his level and be through what he's been through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I will point out he's done this before. He'll just say something like, you know, it's a good deal, but you know, it could be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll
absolutely.
say things publicly like that.
Yes, he does that all the time. He absolutely does, and he'll do the little backhanded kind of Trump insult. You know, yeah, I think he's good. I think he's doing a good job. I think I did a little better of a job, but I think he does an okay job. You know, like he does that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like a backhanded compliment. It's an insult sandwich.
If you remember that one alert that I made of Trump speaking directly to you, I added that actually.
Oh yes,
Razor Fist, you're doing a good job playing the game. I don't know, I could probably do better, but maybe I don't know.
Probably do better.
Yeah.
They tell me I'm pretty good at the game, perhaps the best ever. Primarch Vulcan, is Michael Collins possibly related to Caitlin Collins at CNN? If they're related, that would explain a lot, especially with Operation Mockingbird. What, two relatives, one in government, one in the media, operating at the same time? Come on.
Unheard of.
That would never happen, Cuomo. Filipino white boy, on a scale from 1 to 10, what do you make of the China deal? I consider it a 2. I don't trust China to honor the agreement. I don't trust it either. My final, I gave a little kind of initial impression on X for all the good it does. I'm so algorithmically suppressed.
Don't you touched your mic? Nope.
It's no good, Captain. I cannot reach the control panel. We can't hear you, dude.
Abandon ship. He'll figure it out. I'll read some. Mage Leader, the first shot, missed opportunity to call it engine failure.
We have a warp core breach in progress.
Oh, that's pretty good. I'll have to use that. It's actually a pretty good painting. I'd put that up on my wall.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, cool.
Yep.
My read on the deal with China is both sides get to say they get what they want. Trump gets to lower the tariffs, say China blinked, because they did. They objectively did. They were having factory protests that were bordering on riots, and they're still going to have those. They still do, even after the deal. China gets to ramp up the propaganda machine saying that the United States blinked, and all the lulberts who hate tariffs get to say that Trump blinked as well, and right. But this basically is just kicking the can down the road until August. Make no mistake, communists lie. The communist Chinese have agreed to an entire panoply of things that they've never done, right? Oh, we'll take our military out of the China Sea. They agreed to that under Obama. How did that work out? Right? Like, oh, they agreed to give Hong Kong democracy. How did that work out? Communists lie, it turns out. And it turns out communists always lie. So unless Trump is prepared to really drop the warhammer on their head, sorry, I just got sued by Games Workshop. But unless he's prepared to drop the hammer on him, he better be. That's all I have to say. He better be. Look, I've said this before. In terms of the economic calculus, we will be hurt by an ongoing tariff war, but we'll get over it because we have alternatives to China. China are like the factory of the world, but they don't account for 90% of the stuff that we bring in. They're like 20%, somewhere thereabouts. we can make that up with other countries, or we can move a lot of that production here. You've heard a lot of stories during the tariff war of like, there's a microchip factory right here in Arizona that now is going to be handling the production of microchips instead of a Chinese factory, right? And that place is really, really hopping right now. And there are many such cases during this tariff war. So it would hurt us, but we would get over it. China, on the other hand, cannot find a big enough consumer market to replace the United States. We account for a quarter of their economy. And those are the somewhat softened CCP numbers. Those are probably a lie. We probably account for considerably more than that. We can find other countries that produce because other countries do produce. China is not going to find. China could bundle a bunch of European countries together and still not account for what they're going to lose by losing out on the US consumer market. So it was always in our favor and not theirs. And the clowns at the Hoover Institution and the clowns at the Libertarian Party and so forth, Rand Paul and Thomas Massey, who are supposed to understand economics, apparently don't understand the basic arithmetic that, hey, it's easier to find more factories than it is to find more people to consume from the factories. China doesn't have much of a consumer market. And as we established, I think it was last week or the week before last, China's population figures are a complete bald-faced lie. So they don't even, not only is their consumer market not the equal of the United States, it's not even the equal of what they claim it is. Like, it's considerably lower than that. So, but for my final rating on that, I don't know. It's like, if Trump isn't planning on bringing down the hammer, I give it like a 1. If he does plan on bringing down the hammer and it's kind of part of a longer term campaign, I still only give it like a 6 because China wants to extend the trade war. And he kind of played into that with the deal, I got to admit. All right. Godspeed. Mercenary X. Thank you. Just got sent 2 articles on George Washington on Twitter. It wasn't in battle. I'm sorry, but this is way too damn eerie. Yes, thank you, Mage Leader. The Southern gentleman. So no one with a brain actually thinks 100 men would lose to a gorilla, right? What about 100 women versus taking responsibility for their actions? What about that? Oh. Deus Flex, waiting for Trump to say after the recent SCOTUS ruling for illegals, John Roberts has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. Incidentally, that's an apocryphal quote. The real Andrew Jackson quote, I mentioned this in my video about the courts, was Judge Blank, and I forget the name of the judge. Judge Blank has made his decision. I happen to disagree. It was something like it was not far from the actual quote that people are throwing out there, but it was almost as based. Jegs Dino God recently bought an AR chambered in 300 blackout with a 8-inch barrel and brace. Last one they had. Gonna put a suppressor on. Oh, hold on, my boat has a leak.
Oh no.
Zerp Derp, we know more about the motives of Benedict Arnold than the motives of the Butler native assassin. That's absolutely true. Chief Slingin' Beef, I think the CSA Constitution, that'd be the Confederate Constitution, had term limits and veto powers, correct? 1 6-year term eliminates the BS constant campaigning. True, it does present other problems, though. Mark Daly, Sean Combs did not commit suicide. Oh, sorry, too soon. There we are.
Give it another couple of weeks.
Yeah, that'll be next week or the week after that's episode. We'll have that as the title of the stream, I'm sure. Alex Forbes, one more thing. Tony Martin era Sabbath, being as underrated as it is far more criminal than anything Nixon ever did. I know Hobo would agree with you on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Oops, sorry.
Love me some Tony Martin. Sabbath.
Yes, sir. Have you heard Thorns?
Is that his new album?
Yeah, his newer stuff. It's really good. It's really good. He's still got a voice.
Man, Iommi should do another thing with him. It doesn't have to be called Sabbath, but something else.
He had been talking years ago about he wants to do a new album with Glenn Hughes and he wants to do a new album with Tony Martin. And I'm like, dude, I'm down for either of those. Blitz Systems, the best place for the white South African refugees is Minnesota to counter the Somalis. They already speak Minnesotan. Oh, hey there. Nice day, yeah? Here's the problem. There's only how many of those South African refugees?
Not nearly enough.
Yeah, they just left a black anti-white ethno-state. Do you really want them to enter Somalia? You really want to sentence them to that fate? I'd feel bad for them.
Literally anywhere else.
Yeah. Again, I'm against any refugee program. I think a lot of people misinterpreted my tweet the other day where I was like, hey, I'd rather not have any refugees. I would rather not. I would rather we close down our refugee and immigration. I want a complete pause on all refugee and immigration programs. Mark Daly, Bartleby Roberts strikes again. When asked to protect the country and the Constitution, he says, I would prefer not to. Mr. Scruffles saw Alice Cooper live in Milwaukee the other night with my uncle and grandpops. The show met every expectation I had and even set new ones for me. Thank you for your metal mythos nudging me to go. Godspeed. Rifleman, behold the most popular voted president in U.S. history. All I could think listening to that audio was 81 million votes. All I could think of. Tank Rat. A 102-year-old World War II veteran spoke clearly, and his memory was amazing on a podcast 2 months ago. That man would run circles around Joe Biden. Dude, William Shatner is in his 90s. Have you seen him on a podcast recently? Like, he speaks and looks like he's still in his 60s. Granted,
It's amazing.
Granted, some parts of him are older than others, but...
He recently, I think it was like just a few months ago, he went on a cruise to Antarctica.
Yep.
Like,
I mean, the man went to space!
He's in his, what is he, like 93?
Yeah, I think so.
Crazy, dude. Who would have thought of all the people from the Star Trek cast? He would be the one to outlive everybody. I would have put money on Leonard Nimoy surviving him. Dude.
Nimoy smoked, though, I think.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Mr. Scruffles. Bo is like my right arm, shriveled up, wrinkled, and frail. Covered in tire tracks from all the uppers they give me. Rockwell hardness tested Boopus. Huh? Not sure what's more terrifying, that this shit show of a presidency could have been far worse, or maybe we weren't fully aware of the ramifications of having a dying man run the country. No kidding. All right. Ballcraft, this is bedtime for democracy levels of cover-up. It really is. It was blatant, and it's kind of ridiculous how we already kind of cruised past it. There really do need to be consequences. Anatard, Lord of Derps, just keep in mind that every time Biden refers to the president during this audio, he's referring to Obama. Sea Striker, the Dems are ghouls for Weekend at Bernie'sing up this guy, and he's been a ghoul his whole life, not even a smidge of pity. Truth. Bubba Doom, hell is a real place, shades of Nebuchadnezzar. The Lord saved Nebuchadnezzar, though. Hopefully he will him, too. I'll not hold my breath, however. All right, sweet. Hunter Williams, a Razor huge fan. I think it'd be interesting to see a video about the top 5 worst and best presidents in your opinion, and a bit about each one. I did a tier list of my favorite and least favorite presidents a while back. I have been unable to find it. I put it on X, and I must not have put any text on it or something because I cannot find it anymore. Patriarch Andrew James. If Kamala were president right now, she would probably be forced to wear a burqa in the countries Trump just visited this week. That is true. That is absolutely true. Blitz Systems. My son Bo died, and I used to ride the train with my book in 2015 after Trump was elected. I like chocolate. Sir, this is a McDonald's. Mercenary X. Emperor Biden lightning was pure AI generated. Generic name here. Whenever Trump addresses his detractors, just show a picture of Biden and yell, "Don't boo me. I've seen what made you cheer." Mercenary X. Look at the Marines in detail. Other Marines pointed out. I've got my friends from dads who are Marines. I assume he's talking about the Emperor Palpatine speech. McLeod. The first coalition builder in the Dem Party that shows up will be a real contender. AOC is no coalition builder. She's just an attack dog and divider. Do you think she carries any state other than like New York and California?
No.
Vermont, maybe.
Vermont? Maybe.
Oregon, maybe. Even though they seem to be going more red, though. But
yeah, who knows? Emperor Soft Turtle, sick of people feeling sympathy for Biden. He is a demon who is used and feasted on by other demons. May his mental decline be put on display so he can go in shame. Shit hammers. Remember, kids, Biden's DOJ defied a subpoena for the release of this tape, all while sending Bannon to prison for the same offense. I do remember that, and I made a video about it. Big Mike, I will never not roll my eyes at people saying Kamala ran a great campaign for 107 days. She ran for 4 years. She was going to be next to the president in the very likely event Joe keeled over. No kidding. You do not engineer a coup like that overnight. She put herself in that place. She maneuvered herself into the catbird seat, because that does not happen by accident, dude. You don't trip and fall into running for president. Modern Minuteman movement. Fetterman? Very true. And that's another one that people need to stop feeling sympathy for. Mercenary Acts. Hear me out, Bob Iger and Newsom, VP. Biggest joke. All right. Modern Minuteman movement. If J.B. Pritzker runs, he will not only destroy the country, but every pizza place in existence. The Grand Inquisitor. My dark horse 2028 dim candidate is George Clooney. He's been making his rounds, repairing his image, and could get a lot of moderate or independent voters. I don't know about that one. I don't know.
Clooney? No.
You have any idea how many Diddy parties he probably attended? Jhand04, if the DNC seriously do run this child in 2028. Trenchcoat Sword. I don't know if you keep up with British stuff, but they had a bizarre shift in the immigration conversation recently. Not perfect, but a white pill.
Oh, yeah. Did you hear about that?
No.
Air Starmer tweeted out something like, I deported some today and I'll deport more later. I promise. This comes after he met with Trump.
Huh.
And people were speculating, what did Trump say to him?
Interesting. I mean, Trump is going to be shoring up his trade relations with non-Chinese countries. He wants to correct the trade imbalance with China, and if that's not possible, and it likely isn't because China's just going to keep lying and kicking the can down the road, then he's going to try to replace China with other countries in terms of trade. And so I would imagine Britain would be high on that list. Matthew Hammond, some commentators are pushing Stephen A. Smith 2028. Frog Jupiter, David Hogg's DNC election got voided on DEI. That's true. That's true. Did you guys see that?
What happened?
David Hogg got ousted from his own DNC position.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we all saw that coming.
Not suntanned enough, my friend. Media trumpeting Trump's approval ratings, but it's not a sign of any opposition momentum, isn't it? Otherwise, Dems would not face record low ratings. Well, what's interesting about it is Trump's approval the latest approval ratings just came out and he rebounded big time. So I think that was more so just a lot of the full court press propaganda, which I suspect, again, I've said this before, China's pushing this because China's plan, the leaked CCP internal memo that we talked about last week, and who knows if it's legit, because for those that don't know, the way that the CCP has memos to party officials is you have to be in a monitored, like security monitored room alone. You're not allowed to take the paper. You have to absorb the contents of the paper and then you leave. And so whoever leaked this memo committed it to memory and then leaked it to the rumor mill in the States, because there are absolutely factions that are growing in power within China that are opposing Xi Jinping. And that memo said that the plan from China is extend the trade war as long as possible. I think that's why the 90-day pause until August, and go full court press on anti-tariff propaganda. That's what all that, oh, there's ships sitting unloaded in the harbors in LA and New York and Boston, right? That's where that came from. And of course, they already have paid off a lot of American journalists, so they'll already carry their water because we've got a media field full of Mensheviks. That's just how it works. So you can kind of see that in action already. I took those approval ratings, the momentary dip for Trump, as being a product of that. It was a very well-funded and orchestrated campaign, I suspect, from China and, of course, just good old garden variety Democrats. Emperor Creatine, remember that reminder that Adam Kinzinger fell for the Ghost of Kiev joke. You know the one featuring Samuel Hyde? Yes. Remember that, Taryn?
Yeah. Oh,
He can't
God, I love
keep
that.
getting away with it.
It's the joke that keeps on giving.
It is. Lazy Man 94. North Carolina's got plenty of Dems pretending to be moderate. Roy Cooper or Josh Stein. Or Fetterman could play the long game as well. Yeah, Fetterman might be the person who suggested Fetterman earlier. Maybe. Gilly Monster. The Dems function like the U.S. military minus the functional portion that gets things done. No one can figure out what Dems are doing because Dems don't even know what Dems are doing. All right, Mark. I'm not even going to pronounce that last name. I apologize. Regarding comics, when can we have a patented Razor rant on the irrelevant commie clown car that is the Eisner Awards? They really are irrelevant, man. I can't remember an Eisner Award winner in like the last 12 years. For those who don't know, the Eisner Awards are the award for comic books. They're like the Emmys for comics. So they've obviously, like any other award show, become very, very shriekingly communistically ideological. And no one should be surprised by this.
Shocking.
Yep. Not surprising. But I could not tell you an Eisner Award winner for a decade or more. Modern Minuteman Movement. I heard Comey's daughter works in Pam Bondi's office. That wouldn't surprise me at all. They're all kissing cousins. Nathan Scarlett, thanks the gods, Whitmer is not on that list. Yeah, I did notice that. What'd you say, Hobo?
I said not yet.
Yeah, not yet. I Cast Knife, canceling serious sanctions is a show of good faith, and telling Iran to hop in, the water's fine. Even better, Ben Shapiro is seething. I love this. Here's my problem. Okay, I'm fine with the Syria thing. Iran is different. And that is because there has been a lot of revisionism lately about Iran only using nuclear material for power. And that's just not true, guys. I know people in Iran. They have rolling blackouts even with nuclear power. And there's no reason for it. They have some of the biggest natural gas reserves in that entire region, some of the biggest coal reserves in that entire region. They don't need nuclear power because they have so much else, right? They have every other form of power you could want. They have way more than we do. They don't need nuclear power. The only reason for them to have nuclear is for bombs. That's it. So I think I disagree with that part, personally. That is, I think a lot of people who understandably are wearied of foreign interventionism are forgetting that Iran has been lying to us for a long time about why they've been acquiring nuclear material, and that there is literally zero reason for Iran to have nuclear material except to build weapons. None. They don't need it for power plants. They just don't. Debonair Nerd, off to the movies to see if the Homo Hobbit can reach the fridge top. I didn't know Mission Impossible was out this week until days ago. There's barely any trailers, no posters, or physical placement ads. All right. Ian Carroll's, I'm looking to write my own sci-fi series in the vein of older pulp stories. Are there any sci-fi pulp novels you recommend? Gosh. Read some of Fritz Leiber's stuff. They're pretty good. Sci-fi pulp, I mean, I like a lot of Philip K. Dick's stuff was published in pulp magazines originally. Like, they're all kind of short stories and stuff. I recommend that stuff. So Agamemnon Fireman, have you visited any old 1600s, 1700s landmarks on the East Coast? I used to live in New Jersey and visited New Hampshire. Both beautiful. I hope they flip back red someday. The farthest east I have been in this country is... Pennsylvania? Yeah, I think. And mostly I just saw like Civil War stuff and, kind of that I didn't even get to see the Liberty Bell.
Yeah, the furthest I've ever been is Florida.
Doc, with birth rates declining in the U.S., how do you guys feel about someone looking into getting married and having children in their late 30s? Do you think it's doable? Is it even worth it? Yes. Like, what are you even talking about? Yes. If you're not firing blanks, go for it, bro.
Yeah, 30s is nothing. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like old men's dicks work well into their 50s and 60s. Like, just
Yeah, go for it. The trick is finding somebody who's compatible with you.
And who's
nowadays.
not psycho. Yeah, absolutely. D7 Origin, 1 Michelle Obama versus 100 Barack Obama teleprompters. Yikes! 100 Barack Obamas versus 1 Michelle Obama bulge. Frog Jupiter, here's my plan to save the EU. Find Biden's... Okay. Oh, hold on. Find Biden's necromancer, revive Pinochet, make him dictator of the EU, let him be based. Okay. Find Biden's phylactery, I say.
Profit.
Yes. Big Mike. 100 men versus 1 nervous female cop. Now you stop. You're just advocating mass murder now. What's going on? Some good super chats tonight. Godspeed, everyone. President Irina Vladimirovna Putina. In any era of rhinos, deep state shills, oh no, we can't go that far to the right. And the Noticed, appreciate you for being genuine, Razor. Any songs that you'd recommend post 2020? I can't find anything. Any songs post 2020? Yes. Gosh, there's a whole movement of new wave of heavy metal that's coming out of Europe and even the United States. That's some freaking great stuff. Gosh.
Yeah, KK's Priest is really good.
KK's Priest is freaking killer. Their Heat and Eclipse of just banger album after banger album. I made a whole video actually called what was it? Top 6 new heavy metal albums, I believe it was, or new heavy metal bands. That'll give you some good recommendations. And a lot of those albums are from certainly post 2016 at least. So, you have any recommendations on that, Hobo?
Well, as far as songs post 2020, sure, but most of the bands are probably older. I mean, heck, even like I think of like Sabaton as like a newer band still, but they're literally 20 years old now. So, you know.
Yep.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's nuts. Yes. Dude, think about how old Primal Fear are.
Yeah, their first album was 97. I know that. And they still feel like a newer band. I mean, obviously compared to like Sabbath and Priest and stuff. But
right.
Super Mario Brothers was 20 years ago, right, guys?
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. No, Super Mario. What was it? Galaxy was 20 years ago? Something like that?
Oh, God, no. Stop, please.
Wasn't the first Mario was like 83, I think. Like, not even Super Mario, just Mario.
Right.
Or, that was like 83 or something.
Or his first appearance in Donkey Kong.
Right.
Isn't that like 81? Good Lord.
The major, speaking of Donkey Kong, shout out to Billy Mitchell. The Major Spike 9000. Democrat presidential alternatives: Charles Manson, Albert Fish, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, Zombie John McCain, a Cenobite, the T-Rex that killed Littlefoot's mom, a turkey salad sandwich, hold the mayo.
Now, which Cenobite? Butterball or the Chatterer?
Right. Abigor, I think. All right. Anti-hero. Morning, RazörForce. A bunch of German right-wing YouTubers were doxxed a week ago on a government-funded TV show. Democracy is safe again, I guess. Well, gosh, that's the least of what they've been doing to anyone right of Chairman Mao in the land of Kraut and Lederhosen. All right. Arc 5, speaking of the refugees, did you see the ANC just made talking about the truth of what they're doing to the farmers treason, even for politicians? That doesn't surprise me at all. Did you see that interview with one of the prominent black South African leaders saying, we haven't decided to genocide the farmers, the white farmers, yet.
Did you hear?
It's literally what he said.
Did you hear them call them treasonous? Yeah, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. WCW 2793. Thoughts on the SIG 320 scandal? They changed the manual to say to carry it unloaded because of all the discharges and holsters. Ranges have banned them. Really?
What?
I was at my range recently. I didn't see any notice for it, but I don't really own any SIGs.
I did not hear that.
Audio's clipping, is it?
I
guys-
heard somebody in the chat say if you just leave and then come back, it stops clipping. So
Sometimes that happens just through YouTube.
yeah, I can check it real quick.
Yeah, YouTube doesn't like StreamYard sometimes. Mercenary X been hearing rumors of Chinese military versus itself. The rumor right now is that Xi Jinping is losing control of the PLA. That's been the big rumor. And in support of this, he purged the third most powerful PLA official recently, Hu Weidong, because he had formed a faction, an external faction of other PLA members, which is a big no-no in a communist dictatorship. They try not to have political alternatives as a rule. Spike 1-11-17. They'll probably run Andy from KY, the goat banger. Godspeed. Emperor Creatine new from Daily Gondor. Rohirrim advisor Grima Wormtongue rules against Third Marshal Aomer. Says he cannot deport Urukai White Hand gangsters by Gibbs Me Gold Grabber.
Oh my god.
That sounds like a dwarvish name. I don't know what that... You guys know a dwarvish? I don't know what Tolkien meant by this. Dwarves hang out. They live underground in holes. And they dig up gold, and they're known for being greedy and having big noses.
Funny, she doesn't look Jewish.
And their language is modeled after Hebrew. I don't want to read anything into that at all.
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
That's ridiculous. Next, you'll be saying that orcs are black people.
That amazes me that they made the big thing out of black people being orcs. When dwarves are literally Jews in Tolkien, like they're literally just chosen people. Anyways, so yes, Ryan Parsons, Ripper does indeed kill it on KK Priest, Strike Like a Viper. I had the good fortune of interviewing him to promote that album. Matthew Hammond says the audio is clipping on YouTube, but not on unauthorized. Intrinsic Dark, Trump's presidency won't be perfect by any stretch, but what we hope for is enough bad word of the swamp that it'll take decades to fix. Godspeed. New Doom appears to have actual metal music, unlike the last two. We'll be streaming it tomorrow night, by the way. It's more forgiving, less weapon switchy, less hoppy and platformy, and has mech. Tell me less. Mario Carter. No one mentioned Whitmer's 8645 circa 2020. I didn't even hear of that, actually. This is the first time hearing of it. Of course, Whitmer's kind of irrelevant after she staged her own kidnapping. Common J. All these people going to jail for memes are going to have prison experience. What does that look like? All right, Andrew McGraw. Here's to a certain political alliance inevitably dissipating. Hope I live long enough to see it. Will YouTube let this comment through this time? I don't know what the hell. Maybe talking about Trump kind of cracking down on Israel a little bit. Which he has. He really has been defying Israel a lot, which is good. Israel, it doesn't always have our best interests at heart. I don't have any problem with Trump bucking them. I just don't see them under the bed and around the corner and manipulating everything from behind the scenes. I think that's clown shit, personally. Mercenary X, China, Civ, Wag, May, Delay. What? Gut feeling. I have none of that was English. Emperor Creatine, Durin's beard. I was going to donate 30 gold thorns to you, Sir Razorfist, but after hearing that blatant anti-dwarfism, I find I can only spare 10. He donates 5. All right. Oy vey. Back to Khazad Doom with you. I think you have to get out of the Moria Strip, don't you? Anyways, What? What?
Nothing.
There's a few more on Streamlabs, and then we're gonna get the holy hey out of here.
My son Bo.
Crossfire says, howdy, Razor. So Octavia Chavez, Ocasio Chavez, and Timu Obama are threatening repercussions if they arrest anyone for trespassing in that ICE facility up in Newark. Well, I hate to break it to you. but they already arrested the mayor. Suckamadika, suckamadika, suckamadika. If you guys want to do the suckamadika dance, you feel free. Matthew Hammond, did you notice that you can play Ben Shapiro's Israel Spurgout video at 2x speed and understand everything? Are his speed reading powers tied to positive Israel-U.S. relations? Maybe it's like a political phylactery. DD2225. Hail, Chief Flipping Bird, Tactical Hobo, and loitering at Razor Place Gale. He's actually at his place right now.
Yeah.
Do you think the left plan is to sow division of the right to sneak Valley Girl Ocasio-Chavez in? I don't think they want her to be in there at all. I really don't. It depends, though, who took Pelosi's place. Right now, it looks like Schumer. So if you're asking me if I think Schumer wants to be the nominee, hell no. No, absolutely not. If they can bring her to heel a little bit, if she proves amenable, maybe. But I really don't see it. I really don't. Sonny Crockett. Commies brigaded Kirsch's Twitch and got her banned for today because Friday is the biggest streaming day of the week. Is it really? I picked Friday at random. Is that really?
I mean, it makes sense.
It does make sense. Everybody's off work. You know, they can stay up, I guess.
The kiddies are at home. They can watch the Fortnite streams.
It's funny. I find like Wednesday, like a lot of my favorite streamers are big Wednesday streamers for some reason. But anyways, Korshevo will crush the Reds. Glory to Korshevo. Godspeed. This has been a wild stream. Holy crap, there's even more. You guys are crazy. I can't believe this. Andrew McGraw was talking about the DNC and the elitist progs. Oh, okay. Godspeed. Hunter Williams. Dwarves are Jews, you say? That's a paddling. Mercenary X had a code. YouTube didn't like this one, but China versus China may happen before Taiwan does. May prevent going to Taiwan. China's on much shakier ground than a lot of people think. Maybe before we go, we didn't really get hardcore into China last week. Sorry, China. Yeah. What's your read on what's going on in China? Because there's been a lot of rumors and innuendo and a lot of different stuff that's been said about what's going on in China. Of course, I made a video about it about 2 weeks ago. What is your read on exactly what's going on with China? The purges in the military, the fact that they just got the sort of deal that really just kicks the can down the road. They dropped all their tariffs. What's your read on what's actually going on in China? Do you think Xi Jinping is losing power? Do you think he's just kind of circling the wagons? I'll throw it to Hobo first. What do you think is going on in China, man?
I haven't been paying super close attention, to be honest, recently.
Yeah.
So much going on over here, actually.
No kidding. That's the thing. The media keeps you so wrapped up in the domestic news cycle. A lot of people are not even really seeing these crazy moves happen behind the scenes with the CCP. And the CCP, that's how they like it, right? And there's so much propaganda online. I'll say this. One thing that needs to happen, and it needs to happen immediately, is the TikTok ban. Because if the condition of TikTok remaining up, if Trump was not lying and completely limp-wristed when he said, hey, TikTok, you have to be sold to an American company or you can't operate here, then I'll just tell Trump straight, it's never going to happen. The CCP is never going to allow it to happen. Ban TikTok already. Otherwise, you look impotent. Otherwise, you look like your demand was utterly toothless.
I will say about China, though, I think it was hyped up so much that China is going to be the next great superpower, basically, surpassing the U.S. And maybe there was some exaggeration there, just a bit. I mean,
sorry, this is so childish, but I love this. The Grunkle. China are going pee-pee in our Coke. Me Chinese, me play joke.
The Grunkle, that's the guy who did the Fisting Tonight song.
Yes, he did.
Fisting Tonight.
Fisting Tonight. I need to upload that, dude. I don't think I even have a copy of that. The AI song. Not that we should hold that against it. But Taryn, what's your read on the China situation?
It's, of course, I don't actually know, but my feel for it is that Xi Jinping is losing his grip. He's doing the purges basically on anybody who's questioning him. I don't think he's going to go quiet.
Yeah.
I think he's going to try to take down as many people as he can to retain power.
Yeah, there's kind of a emerging political alternative that, what is it? Young Bao faction, I think is what it's called. I could have gotten that name wrong. I'm terrible at memorizing English names, let alone Chinese ones. But there is an emerging anti-Xi Jinping faction. And I suspect Xi Jinping is beginning to feel more and more embattled, which is, man, how pathetic does that make Xi Jinping seem in the grand scheme of things? Because Xi Jinping's entire administration has been defined by the fact that after years and years of opening up China, he's the guy who cracked down. He's the guy who basically closed off China for the express purpose of preserving the dictatorship of the CCP.
Mm.
If he winds up going out like a bitch in spite of all those efforts, does that not make him like the weakest leader in contemporary Chinese history? I mean, that's incredible, because that's basically what he devoted his entire administration to. Absolutely crazy.
Oh, and somebody else brings up in the chat, we actually don't know, but a good place to find information would be China Uncensored.
Yeah, that's a great. I love Lei's Real Talk, Lei's Real Talk. She's a Chinese person. She's like actually from China and does a lot of Chinese analysis. And she talks a lot about like the leaked rumor stuff, because as she says, and it's true, rumor out of China has, like, compared to the credibility rating of the mainstream US media, is like bang on 110% of the time. Like, they're usually, rumor out of China is way more reliable than official media reports out of America relating to China, if that makes sense. Blitz Systems, DNC 2028 will be in Chicago and will nominate Michelle Obama. She'll come on stage to the chants from the natives of Kong, Kong, Kong. No, actually, she's going to walk up to the mic. And after a lengthy introduction from the previous president, Slow-Mo Joe, she will say, well, she's finally here, performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Sorry, anyways. Matthew Cooper, rest in peace, Joe Don Baker. Joe Don Baker died? What?
I thought he had been dead for a while.
I thought so too. Go ahead on.
It's your move.
Show move. A James Bond legend.
It gunned my head. I swear I thought he was already dead. Apparently he died May 7th.
Jeez.
It was recent.
Yeah. Shaggy Rogers book reviews. Well, that explains why I'm so damn short. Diggy, diggy hole. Diggy, diggy hole. Oops, wrong one. BAR1 Studios just finished a biography of Bill Wilkerson and the founding of The Hollywood Reporter. Turns out Hollywood was always red and always mobbed up. Well, I don't know. There was some handsome fella on YouTube who made a video about that once. All right. Big Mike, do you think looking back in history, it was a mistake we didn't do more to help the whites and Chiang Kai-shek? Or was the Reds winning inevitable? I'm working on a video about this subject because I don't want to give away what the subject of the video is, but it heavily deals with and butts up against some of the Reds who were exposed in like the OSS and later the CIA and FBI. That, like, you know, the DICE committee and the Hollywood Un-American Activities Committee and the McCarthy hearings, the Army McCarthy hearings, some of those people who were exposed. We didn't help Chiang Kai-shek and the whites because we got false intelligence from the front, from a bunch of communists who were embedded in our intelligence agencies. But it gets better. 3 guys in particular, and I'll name them in the video, were living together, and they were supposed to be at different ends of China. They were supposed to be in different places, but they were actually all sharing an apartment, and rutting like rabbits because they were all queer and they were all communists, and they were sending false reports. And one guy was living under the same roof, verifying the false information from the other guy's shitty report. And so 3 guys, basically, there's a giant literal and political and communistic circle jerk that led to a bunch of false intelligence getting back to FDR about the status on the ground of Mao. They kept talking up how well Chairman Mao was doing and talking down how well Chiang Kai-shek was doing. And that ultimately led to us abandoning Chiang Kai-shek and allowing Chairman Mao to seize control of China. So it'll be a fascinating subject to cover in a future video. But yeah, 3 gay dudes literally caused us to abandon China and give it over to communism back in the day.
Real quick, I want to read this comment over on X from Kyler. Do you like music? You seem like the type.
I'm sorry, what?
He says, do you like music? You seem like the type.
No, not at all. Joshua Dillon, sorry, I was looking through the super chats. Joshua Dillon, you'll see that they neutered the HPA in the short act. Well, they are fixing it. Thank God. All right. No, I didn't actually. Primarch Vulcan, did you see Pete Rose got reinstated into the Hall of Fame this week? About damn time. I didn't actually.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Joshua Dillon, thank God for based Republicans for blocking the spending bill to make sure the short and HPA acts are in there. Gut the NFA. I hope so. Andrew McGraw, the FDR administration was a blight on history. Ditto for Truman, my man. All right. One last look at the Streamlabs stuff, and then we are going to roll hard here. This has been an incredible episode of the RazörForce Offensive, ladies and gents. I can't thank you enough for the stunning amount of support. Folks.
Huge turnout.
Yes, incredible turnout. We'll be back next week for yet another offensive. Tomorrow, we are going to be streaming Doom Dark Ages. If you want to watch, of course, the VOD of this and be able to go back and check the random rants that pop up in the middle of these and so forth, all that exclusive stuff, head up Unauthorized TV and join the RazörForce. But until next time, for Terran Gell and Tactical Hobo, I am Razor Fist. Godspeed!